that the reason why we have any mental health issues is because we are not comfortable in our own skin. So, the one short way that we can be healthy as people, as a society, is first have a clear cut answer to who am I, what is my purpose in life, and what adds meaning to my life. If we can ask this question to ourselves time and again, because our spirituality is nothing but what we feel about ourselves or the quality of our most important relationship. If I am there, mine is there. So, for me, I feel for emotional well-being, just practicing that pause where first we learn to get anchored in our own self. Nobody eats gold bars. King Midas also couldn't. So the whole point is success, money, they all have their space. I'm not saying that they are good or bad. That's a separate debate altogether. But what's really important is, how do I feel in my skin? How does my mind support me in feeling good about my life? Or well-being is nothing where I feel that the positives in my life are more than the negatives that I have in life. So that ability to laugh in spite of challenges is, for me, the sum total of emotional well-being.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Coffee with Warriors podcast. In today's episode, we are going to discuss emotional intelligence and well being, especially in children and teenagers. And to enlighten us on this crucial topic, we have with us a seasoned BPS licensed clinical psychologist with more than 15 years of experience in this field. She has authored 2 books on mental health. She has to her credit various diplomas like diploma in counseling and psychotherapy, occupational health psychology, cognitive behavior. She also has her professional credentials from Harvard Medical School and University of Cambridge. Apart from her private practice, she is presently working as a part-time faculty, corporate trainer, and psychological counselor at Cornash, the Lifestyle Management School, Kolkata. She is the visiting pain psychologist at a leading government hospital in the city. She has conducted many workshops on personality development, self awareness, CBT for anxiety, positive body image, self esteem, and whole person potential at various platforms. In keeping with the tradition of her ongoing quest for knowledge, she is now pursuing a program in women leadership from IIM Kolkata. Her ongoing PhD doctoral thesis on emotional well-being is emerging as a unique multidisciplinary research piece. She is none other than Pragatisureka. Hi, ma'am. I feel so honored and grateful to have you with us on the show today.
Thank you so much, Nishta. I think the pleasure is entirely mine to see someone so young and so vivacious and vibrant and talking about well-being. For me, it's like manna from heaven. And congratulations to you too.
Thank you. Thank you. So, ma'am, before we begin, could you tell us a little about when did you really find it necessary to write your book, Hope, based on the mental health for kids? As it is not something that is discussed openly and it's often stigmatized and negated in our society. And especially when it comes to kids, we don't really give their mental health so much importance as it should be given.
I totally agree with you, that there is still a lot of stigma regarding mental health, and especially with children. I wrote Hope when I realized that maybe 4 years back, that a lot of parents were seeking help. Movies like Tare Zameen Par, or even A Dear Zindagi for that matter, which are popular movies in the Indian context. One dealt with the learning difficulties, and after that, a lot of parents became aware of how children needed help, and they were not there could be other reasons why they were not able to cope up with schoolwork. It wasn't that they were being mentally challenged, or whether it was because they were being difficult. No, there were certain organic reasons, and it just needed to be dealt with by a specialist. So even a movie like Dear Zindagi, in fact, I remember this young child of about 15 or 16 came in for some help, and there were some difficulties happening in school. And the first thing this person tells me, "Oh, you don't look like Shah Rukh Khan." And I laughed. I said, "Yes, wrong gender." So that's when I realized that, movies play a very significant role in
Right.
how we perceive any profession. And the same is true for mental health. So now what I started realizing is, since popular movies were showing psychology as a profession,
Right.
as one would go to a doctor without feeling hesitant about it, people were now ready to seek help from a psychologist for any kind of issue, especially with their children. However, what I started seeing is a lot of parents were coming and saying, fix up my child and there's nothing wrong with us. So when I wrote Hope, I just wanted to give a subtle nudge to parents. Are there certain things that you're doing at home which actually are hampering the child's performance? Is the child worried about something which the child need not worry about? So
Right.
if you see the first story, which is Ryan's story, there's this young boy who's distracted at schoolwork. So there is a teacher who's very empathetic, who sees that the child's eyes look troubled. Now, if
Right.
you see, teachers today are also very, pressurized with school curriculum and too many children in one class. However, I was hoping that this book is like a guiding light. The teacher is the first mentor in any child's life. So if you just look at that child with encouragement or just give a kind word, frankly, that really helps in enhancing the emotional well-being and mental health of the child. And if there are deeper issues, sometimes all that's required is clear communication to start off. Like
True.
for me, it's a bit like brushing your teeth. A dentist can fix up a cavity, but you need to still brush regularly to ensure that cavities don't occur.
True. And
So with
similar.
that
Yeah.
hope in mind, I got down to writing Hope, so that parents, teachers, students themselves understand that mental health, if they are feeling difficulties in their mind, the best way is that to address it. And it's good that they are aware that something doesn't feel right. Like for example, if I feel hot, I'll probably switch on the air conditioner or the fan. But if I pretend, oh, it's absolutely fine, I'm just going to keep sweating, where we are in the sultry monsoons right now. So if we
Right.
are aware that, yes, it feels uncomfortable, we'll do something about it. So my hope with Hope is essentially that, that
Wow.
you can become aware
Absolutely. I
that,
love.
yes, something feels difficult. So just address it.
Right. And I love how the concept of your book, Hope, you gave it two perspectives. One from the child itself, that there are children who are going through issues which need to be addressed, as well as from the teacher who saw that the child is going through something wrong, and which is a sense of encouragement for other teachers and other guardians to also take this up even in young children. And I loved how
Absolutely.
you mentioned the thing about brushing your teeth, because as we had got on a call earlier and you very rightly told me that how we take care of our teeth every single day by brushing our teeth, it's so vital for us to take care of our mental health in the same way, taking care of it
Yes.
every single day, which we often miss out or just negate.
I totally agree. And when I wrote Hope, it was my hope that emotional well being becomes a way of life for everybody. It's not some kind of an issue that they need to come to me only and I'm expanding my therapeutic practice. No, the idea is, if I can empower even a handful of children and their parents, to take care of their mental health, I feel it's a job well done and my purpose in life is achieved, to be honest. And self
Yeah.
sufficiency is the key. Once you're self sufficient, if you realize that, okay, you need extra guidance, anyone can come in and give it, whether it's me as a practicing clinical psychologist, whether it's any kind of mentor, whether it's a parent, all that is sideways. But I really believe in, if each one can find meaning in their own emotional well-being, that's my job well done.
Wow. Yeah. So it's not just about giving medicines or giving very temporary, ways to cure it. It's a lifestyle change that you would want to see in people.
Absolutely true.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. Also, as I mentioned earlier, because you had said that how we should take care of our mental health every single day. What are few ways that anybody can take care of their mental health every single day and be conscious about what is going on in their mind or what is troubling them?
The simplest way, Nishta, for all students, that is regular journaling. How do we become aware of, let's say, the weather? we look outside, we check out the weather,
Yeah.
One way is that we see whether the sun is shining brightly, whether it's cloudy, so it gives us an idea, so we dress up accordingly. Oh, it's like, another way is we start feeling hot or we start feeling cold. So when we pay attention, we are able to navigate. So when it comes to your mental health, what will you do? Firstly, you start seeing, are you behaving in a way that you don't understand why, that you are very snappy, you're irritable, or you start seeing that somewhere your performance is suffering. You're opening a book, but it's like Greek and Latin, your attention is not there, you're distracted. So first you start seeing your behaviors, and then you pay attention to your feelings. The simplest way to do it is to write a journal. Have a notebook and a pen. It sounds very old school. I have a lot of clients, and I have a lot of people who attend my workshops who say they prefer the phone or the computer, and I'm all for the laptop. But there's something about holding a pen, because I feel like, our nerves, we have pain sensors here. So when we hold something, we actually establish that connection between our hand and our mind. And if you just write 5 sentences every day to start off with, what felt good, what did not feel good today, what is it that I can change, what is it that I cannot change, what am I grateful for? So that's 5 specific feelings that you are talking about to yourself on a regular basis. So over a period of time, you learn to study your own internal weather. It doesn't matter what your parents say, what your friends say, because, sometimes even the most well-intentioned friend may say, oh, you're so sloppy, you're always so negative, you're always cranky, you're always complaining. And you may think, no, that's not true. I'm just feeling very bogged down and I only want to share. I'm just looking for a safe space to vent out to. So what happens is, unfortunately, the safe spaces that we think are safe are not so safe, because they give their own opinion and they say, the way to hell is paved with good intentions. So in spite of good intentions of family and friends, somehow we are not able to talk about our feelings. We learn to snub our feelings. So the only requirement to begin taking care of your mental health is to start addressing your feelings. And the difference between a feeling and an emotion is, you can say, I'm very angry that, Kabul, let's say, has been taken over by the Taliban. Okay, it's the hot current news at the moment. Now I may see, how dare Taliban take over Kabul? And I start seeing that my nostrils are flaring, my eyes, my pupils are getting dilated. That's an emotion. So feeling with some kind of a physical reaction becomes an emotion. So the way we can tackle our mental health is, we start seeing, one is what we are saying and what's happening in our body. Like certain things when we say, sometimes you will notice that your pitch has started going higher, or sometimes, it gets a little lower when you're awkward or shy about something. So the best way is to start regular journaling. Basic journaling is what I recommend to start off with. Next can be, you can write pages also. You can write about specific incidents. That, as you go deeper, you can. To make it simple and short, I say that just 5 sentences a day, if you write on a regular basis, it's really going to be beneficial.
And I feel like even journaling, because I tried doing it, I'm not gonna lie, I don't do it anymore, but I did realize that when you pen it down, you instantly feel so much better. And it's instantly, you're reflecting on yourself, on your emotions, as you mentioned, and it instantly becomes so much more clearer than it was, because first you don't know what is happening, you're just angry for no reason, you're just venting out, and you don't know why you're behaving the way you are. And the second you write it down, you're like, okay, this is happening because of this. So then it gets more clear in your own head, and you can then look for solutions, and then just sort things out way faster and easier.
Yeah. And there is also, if we go into brain anatomy, I won't bore everyone with it. But since these days, technical terminology is everywhere. Like there is one area of our brain, if you see the prefrontal cortex, if you see in our Indian culture, we always said, ki put a tika here, your forehead should always be calm. The reason is because your problem solving area of the brain is located here in the front part of your brain. So when that is activated, see, when you're writing, you actually are activating that zone. Now we have another very interesting part in our brain called the amygdala, which you will hear about. And that gets triggered off, that's the seat of our emotions. So that's where our fight and flight instincts come. So most of the time, what happens is our amygdala takes over. We start perceiving threat in situations. And that's why you will see we get defensive if someone checks us, because we're like, hey, this person is hampering me. Now, if we were in a problem solving mode, we are like, okay, fine, the person's expressed an opinion. I can just discard it if I don't want to take it in, right? As adults, we know that. But so the whole point is when we journal regularly, we are able to function from a prefrontal area, which makes it feel that, okay, all is well. Otherwise, there is our hindbrain, which is, linked to our survival. So I won't take you all much into depth of it. Most of the time, mentally, why we get challenged is we either go on a survival mode where we get really, really threatened, or we get emotionally hijacked, where we feel I have to fight it out. Otherwise, things will go completely in disarray. But our problem solving part is it's okay. I don't like what is happening. Now, how am I going to deal with the situation? So if I'm in this mode, most challenges in life we can handle, whether it's related to our health, whether it's related to our relationships, to our aspirations, our finances, our loved ones, or any goals we have, So the idea is very, as much as we can keep our prefrontal cortex into action, So that means keep your head cool. That thing that we hear, sometimes even an act of splashing water on your face every hour does the trick, because it makes you practice the pause. You're studying for an exam and you are so worried and worked up. You're like, I ought to have studied a lot more, or things are just going over my head. So if you just go splash some water, one is you take your mind away from that frightened zone, that zone of fright. Instead, you go into, okay, I've studied so much. Now let me just refresh myself and I'll get back to task. So if we can get our brain to be in that calm state, that's when our mental health is, our friend and not something to be feared.
Right. Also, it's so important. Like I often hear my mother telling me, write it down, write it down. And there's no really reason, I would always feel that, okay, she's so old school, if I'm writing she is so particular about me writing everything down. Even my schedule for the day, I have it all on my phone. She's like, no, write it down. So I would always feel that, why she's so old school, why it's the age of, the digital world and all of that. But now, because you've actually explained it in such a scientific way, it actually explains why it's so important to actually pen everything down. And I love the way how you showed that while holding a pen, it's touching these sensory points if I'm not wrong.
Yes, pain points. We'll just leave it as pain points.
Pain points, yeah, okay. So you touch these points and it immediately cools your brain down. It makes it more clear and everything. Yeah, I love that. So also, before we dive into emotional intelligence and well-being, could you first explain what emotional intelligence and well-being really is? What's the difference?
So emotional intelligence is essentially, this concept got popularized by Daniel Goleman. It's been given by Peter Salovey, and they just spoke about how your emotions define the quality of your life. What they said is when you're aware of your emotions, you actually can decide whether you want to regulate them. It's like I'm angry that, let's say, there is a female infanticide. So then I realize is maybe raving and ranting with everyone will not get me any kind of help, or it's not going to solve the issue.
Right.
So I realize, what do I want to do about my anger? Like, here you are, like, you feel strongly about mental health or any kind of thing. So you regulate, you're like, okay, how can I constructively channelize this energy that has got evoked in me, this anger, this emotion. So what is anger telling me? If you see, all emotions have a purpose. The purpose of anger is something is happening which is not right, and I'm feeling so helpless, so I want to do something about it. And that's why I'm so angry. So to get out of that feeling of helplessness, I have to be motivated. So but then I get self-motivated. Okay, I can make a podcast, I can make a video about it, I can go into my community and talk to people who are doing female infanticide, that see, this is is so wrong. I could probably go to specific states. I could go to specific localities. So when I function in that way, so you can see my emotions are guiding me to function very intelligently.
Right.
First, I become aware, then I regulate, and then I get self-motivated to act. And the result is I have better relationships with others. I'm never willing to flare up. I look at the concepts of multiple truths. I see why people think in a particular way, they act in a particular way. How can that be changed? So that is emotional intelligence. So how is
Right.
it that the thoughts that we think, how can we be aware of them? How can we regulate them? And how can we use that for our own growth and development?
Wow,
So
yeah.
that is emotional intelligence explained as simply as I could. I hope that made a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely that did, because often you're not really aware of what emotional intelligence really is. And I was in the misconception earlier that emotional intelligence was a concept which meant that you should not react. But it's like
Mhm.
when you put it the way it is, it's like, no, you need to really allow yourself to feel that emotion, not just suppress it anywhere. You should feel it, but you should know how to express it. Like, you can't just be angry and livid. You should know how to take out that anger in a constructive
Yes.
way to make a
Yes.
change as to why you're
Yes.
angry. Absolutely. And
Absolutely.
that's something which I feel is so important in today's world, because everybody is going through problems, but there are so many people, especially teenagers, who just vent it out in a way where they're not supposed to, and they don't just harm themselves but everybody around them in some way or the other. So emotional intelligence actually is so important nowadays from such a young age, right? So once you had mentioned that children respond fast to mental health interventions, so could you tell
Mhm.
me more about this statement, and why do children in particular respond to these very quickly?
Because children have less of a backlog when it comes to emotional garbage that we keep inside. See, you will see that when you were 6 years old, maybe the sum total of feeling sad or angry was someone took away your toy, or your mother didn't feed you
True.
what you wanted, or somebody. So
Yeah.
when you can put it in perspective, it's easier. Now at 16, you have a lot more people who have let you down. Some things
Yeah.
that you allow yourself to think about, but there are many things which you're like, oh, I've let it go. But if you're brutally
True.
honest, you realize that it hurts, but there's nothing you can do about it. So it's
Right.
easier to say, I don't care.
Right.
But what happens is, with children, or specifically even adolescents, they are still growing, and they still have that wonder in their eyes, and they have fire in their belly.
Yeah.
I love working with teenagers and young adults, because with them I see, okay, this is functioning, that is not functioning. See, like the scientific explanation that I gave you, very little I pointed out to it. Children are fascinated by new facts. Adults unfortunately become a little numbed out or atrophied. They function from that. There is no more learning to be done, so they lose that curiosity about life. So they are like, okay, I know what to do. It works, it doesn't work. We go into a very black and white mode. Whatever doesn't work, they feel very threatened. But children, all said and done, I feel that curiosity is still alive in them, so they are
Right.
willing to explore a newer way of being. You just demonstrated it for me. Okay, journaling, my mom said it, I didn't like it, but hey, I've just got a new insight. Okay, I may be willing to try it. So that's the beauty, why I feel that working with children tremendously helps you make inroads. There are lesser inhibitions in them. And with children, I've seen, if you're willing to listen to them,
Right.
you'd be surprised. I mean, I'm sure, like, I'm sure you feel it. And that's why you started off with your podcast. They can just open up like it's nobody's business. And they are absolutely willing to work at themselves.
Yeah. And also, I've realized, as you very correctly mentioned, many adults, by the time they are of a certain age, to them, everything is black and white. There's no gray, like it's either right or wrong. So if you put out a perspective which is different from theirs, they instantly take offense and they take it so personally. But with
True.
children, it's like when they see something new, they are so curious about it, as you mentioned, that they want to learn more about it, and they instantly. So I've seen with my cousins at home, so if they see
Mhm.
anything on TV, they quickly connect to it, or they quickly learn, and so I feel like, yeah, I feel they're such a sponge where they just absorb everything that they see or hear around them. So it's so important to actually talk or show kids something which is more constructive to them, talk about maybe how they can express what they are feeling, or it's okay to not be okay, after.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So since you are a psychologist by profession for many years, 15 years, as I mentioned,
Mhm.
which topic in particular do you feel needs to be most addressed when it comes to children?
Today, I feel it's emotional ability resources, or emotional well-being. Because what's happened is we have become slightly pessimistic. Even in psychology, we've had four great waves, where we had, I won't take you into depth of psychology. Early on, it was more about, just looking into your childhood and your hurts and repressions. Then came, fix the environment and fix the child. Then came that, let the person be however they are from now on. That's the third wave. The fourth wave of psychology right now is positive psychology, which talks about, from this point onwards, how can you enhance yourself? So, old traditional values like character strengths that we spoke about, like humor. Humor is something we've forgotten the importance of humor. Wisdom. Wisdom is what? Basic creativity, that love for learning that we have, courage. So these are things that we need to build up on. So I like emotional well-being because I feel now there is scope for it to be taught like a subject. Like, when we were going to school, we had English, Hindi, mathematics as the basic subjects till 10th, and also science. Now coding is coming in from class 5. The whole pattern is changing. So I feel ki why is mental health something, which is optional? Why not introduce it to children from a young age? So whether your parents are uh, not doing what they are meant to do, or the environment is not very conducive, how can you still grow? We have this young girl who's just gone to Harvard, right, from a village in Bihar right now. So how is it if you see the tribals, if you see somewhere the ones who are focused, they are not distracted with what is happening around them. They live in the harshest of conditions, but their self-focus or commitment in their own growth, can help them transcend any adversity. So I really feel that even for children, we really need to have textbooks, we need to have storybooks. In fact, when I wrote Hope, and now I'm in the process of writing a couple of more books, so children learn how to take care of their emotional ability, like you become good at maths, like you become good at English. So English, so you can string sentences together, you can do a social cause with it, you can write your college essay, you can do anything with your ABCs that you have learned. So my hope for children is that they learn about emotional well-being and they learn to identify emotional ability resources like journaling, so they know how to take care of their mental health.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
that's the way forward I see.
True. So as you mentioned, how it's so important for schools to introduce mental health as a subject, but unfortunately, it's no one teaches you this, or no one addresses it the way they should, especially in our educational institutions. So since it is not taught in educational institutions, how do you think can parents have healthy and easy conversations about the children's mental health with their kids, and how can kids be more open and more understanding, and know that their parents are there to support them, like irrespective of whatever they are going through?
What I have seen, what really works, anyone who's come for counseling to me, and there have been hundreds, I recommend that parents spend 15 minutes a day switching their phone off, just talking to their child, and not giving gyan, or not telling them where the child is going wrong, where the skin is bad, or where the sports activity is not good. Just talking as two individuals talking to each other, could be sharing their own life journey. Let's say today, as a parent, I may feel that my child is, distracted and not doing enough. Then I have to introspect that where is it that I feel the child is not making use of the resources. So what helps is, many parents, I tell them, share your personal stories, how when you were a young child you aspired for and you did, and now how you feel hurt that, in spite of opportunities, the child is not taking time out to, make the best of opportunities. So clear communication for 15 minutes a day without fail is what I recommend for parents and children. And it's not like a family, conference happening, individual interaction. Every parent, every child, that really helps. Secondly, what I recommend is for parents is give your child a tight hug. In fact, during World War II, there was this disease called marasmus. A lot of abandoned babies were there, and doctors couldn't find out why are they falling ill. And then they figured out that these babies were not being held. So, when nurses held the babies, when people did, the children were thriving and they were doing really, really well. Yes.
Really, that's the importance of hugging.
It's that important for your child. And yeah, even if, like, I have a teenager who doesn't want to be hugged, so I smile, I take permission, but I still give it, because hugs somewhere really release neurotransmitters which make us feel happy, oxytocin and a lot of other transmitters which naturally give us that high or euphoria about life. So I recommend for parents to do these two things. And third and most important is laugh with them every day. Initially, it'll seem very funny. We have different sense of humor and all that. But I have seen, if you can share just one joke a day, just laughing, that really helps bridge the gap as nothing else. So my tip to parents is these three things to start off with.
Right. Wow. I love that. So do you feel like it is important for parents to, allow their kids to slow down and to do more of the things which make them happy, because I feel that today all the parents are so obsessed with their children either coming first in class or in some race. So how important do you feel is it for kids to feel free to do more of what they love, and how is it linked to their emotional intelligence?
For me, I think it's absolutely vital. And that's where hope came along, because I wanted parents to realize that you don't die till your last breath comes. Now, that could come the next minute, it could come 40 years later. These days, no one ages early. So rather than trying to live vicariously through your children, why not work on yourself? The other day, I was watching Larry Crown, where there's Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts, and how Larry Crown, he goes back to college and he fixes his life the way he wants to. So age is just a number. So I strongly recommend to parents that if you are not a murderer, if you do not fleece people, chances are very low that your child is going to turn out to be either. Keep the faith, and role model the values that you want your children to imbibe. Like for me, I will share my personal journey. I remember my son was 4 years old and he told me, and those days I was bringing up, my older one was born and the younger one was just, my older one was 4 year old and my younger one was just born. And I was like, I'm busy looking after both of them. And he told me one day, Mama, you only scold me and tell me your homework nahi hua hai. And I felt so bad that day. He said, why don't you do something? And I was like, excuse me, like, but today I thank that statement because it opened my eyes out. Like even and children are very smart. And I was like, yeah, actually I am well educated. I have these children and I can look after my home, but there's so much more to me. So I started working on myself and developing myself. And today I think I'm very proud of both my children. They are very independent. Of course, they go through their ups and downs, but they know how to take decisions. So coming back to your question, I feel for parents, you are the best role models. Don't doubt yourself. There may have been setbacks, there may have been a lack of qualifications or opportunities. But if you've realized today, I mean, let's face it, all of us are intelligent enough. We all can make something work for us, and when we get interested in our own growth and development, we also teach our children the same thing.
Right.
So the best way is role modeling positive, growth oriented behavior, whatever the age. Secondly, an attitude of gratitude. And third is, charity. I strongly advocate charity and giving back to society. Because, these days, like you rightly pointed out, why this quest for marks? It's like, achhe college mein jana zaruri hai. Now, coming back to the movie I spoke about, Larry Crown, he goes to a community college, which probably, here we wouldn't even think of. It's like an open system of education. So you can make whatever you want to of your life. So I think somewhere just appreciating life in general, that's what we need to do as a society, as parents, and as role models.
Absolutely. And I feel like, so you put it out so beautifully that irrespective of where you go, even if you don't get the marks, the most
Mhm.
important thing is your emotional health and well-being, and which parents nowadays often fail to see that. Like, they are like, okay, my child is stressed, I don't care, you have to study, you have your exams coming up. Like,
Mhm.
what I feel is that priorities are so different from what they should be. Like, you're not focusing on what your child's mental health is and how the child is living. Maybe the child gets marks but is dreading it inside. What's the point of even going to a great university when the child is not happy or is slipping into depression? What are you getting out of going to a great university when you can't be happy?
Would have a disclaimer here. The name of the university is not important, but most people who have really made it big have a love for learning and a
True.
love for creativity and, being the best that they can be. I feel the current crisis, or even parents or children, is really happening is because we don't have enough conversations about what is meaningful in life. What is the purpose of living? Once these questions, there is clarity, automatically goal setting, vision, ambition, success, emotional well-being, I think they will all get their space. If you look at existential psychologists like Viktor Frankl, he wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning. The reason why so much anxiety, depression is coming, people feel that a big name, a university, or a big pay packet will give them happiness. Unfortunately, only meaning in life and a sense of purpose, can give you happiness. So it's like you go, I walk into Starbucks and I ask for, a t-shirt, a Zara t-shirt. I'm not going to find it there. I will only get coffee. Maximum, I can get some alternatives to coffee, but I'm not going to get Chinese food. I'm not going to get my favorite high street clothing brand. I'm not going to get it. So what's really happening is why so much of turmoil is going on with universities. People think a university education from a reputed name will give them happiness. Now, all these universities, we have to understand, they serve a purpose. That thirst for knowledge, that thirst for research, these universities have that name is because people are academically inclined. They want to find that theoretical construct. They believe in that deductive reasoning or analytical reasoning dependent on which stream are you studying. So it was with a specific purpose of giving structured ways of learning to us human beings. But most of us have made it as though they are the portals of happiness. That is, of course, a third genre altogether.
Yeah. True, very true, very true. And I loved how you put it, because today it's so important to know. And I loved how you mentioned that you first need to understand what is your meaning and purpose in life, what truly gives you happiness, or what you're doing for other people and not yourself. And it's so important to do things for yourself to be emotionally happy and live well. So I feel like, because in today's society, people usually do things to make others happy and to be great in others' eyes and to care about what other people think of them, that they fail to do things which truly make them happy from within, because they're so, like, tied down by societal expectations, which should not bother them at the end of the day.
I totally agree, Nishta, and I'm so happy you took this initiative because, I feel that the reason why we have any mental health issues is because we are not comfortable in our own skin. So, the one short way that we can be healthy as people, as a society, is first have a clear cut answer to who am I, what is my purpose in life, and what adds meaning to my life. If we can ask this question to ourselves time and again, because our spirituality is nothing but what we feel about ourselves or the quality of our most important relationship. If I am there, mine is there. So, for me, I feel for emotional well-being, just practicing that pause where first we learn to get anchored in our own self. Nobody eats gold bars. King Midas also couldn't. So the whole point is success, money, they all have their space. I'm not saying that they are good or bad. That's a separate debate altogether. But what's really important is, how do I feel in my skin? How does my mind support me in feeling good about my life? Or well-being is nothing where I feel that the positives in my life are more than the negatives that I have in life. So that ability to laugh in spite of challenges is, for me, the sum total of emotional well-being. And if I had to sum it up, I would say, have an issue, give ear to it. first listen. Why am I feeling bothered by it? Why am I getting troubled? Before you call up a friend, before you call up a parent, or even your shrink, ask yourself, because you are your own best friend.
Absolutely, yeah. And I feel like how you mentioned it's so important to be comfortable in your own skin is because I see all around, and I won't lie, I have insecurities myself, but I feel like now they're projected in such a manner because of society. Like, it's so important to first be comfortable in your own body and be comfortable in the person you are, right? And I totally agree with what you said.
And also, as a child, if you start seeing, let's say you're an adolescent and you see certain patterns in your parents. Now, my take is, if you are on the brink of adulthood, like Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you're going to get power as an adult, take personal responsibility. Acknowledge that, yes, I expected this from my parents, I didn't get it. So what? Now I just have to work a little harder and focus a little bit more to get what I want. So I like that kind of a very adaptive approach, even with the children, because we can't sit around blaming our parents, grandparents, and genes. Yeah, it just gives us a word of caution that, okay, that I see these patterns and I don't want to repeat that, so I have to be extra careful. A bit like diabetes, if you have diabetes running in your family, then you are a little more careful about having sweets after a particular age, because your propensity to get diabetes is a little higher than someone who doesn't have diabetes, or if it could be with eye trouble or anything. So even with mental health, I feel one is, you think that, okay, my parents ought to have done that, then it's okay, I just have to be a little more careful to take care of myself.
Right, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah. Also, ma'am, before we end every single podcast, we have a rapid fire round. So you could
Okay.
answer them in either one word or one sentence. So do I begin?
Perfect. Done.
Okay, so the first question is, what is being emotionally intelligent to you in your personal life?
For me, it's walking my talk.
Wow, yeah. Love that. What is a skill you missed out on before you learned to be emotionally agile?
Keeping my mouth shut.
What is one thing you wish you knew 10 years ago?
Emotional intelligence.
Right, yeah. What's the biggest lesson you have learned in the last 12 months?
What I have learned is life is beautiful.
True, very true.
Cherish every single day.
Yeah, I love that. So that was all for the rapid fire round.
It was just wonderful, Nishta. I've really, really enjoyed being here. And thank you so much.
I learned so much from you today, and I really appreciate how much you're doing to create mental health awareness in the form of writing books and coming to podcasts and really talking about how you yourself actually practice what you preach with your children. You know, how you mentioned, even though she does not like being hugged, you are like, I ask for permission and then I hug her. So I love that. I love that. And thank you so much, ma'am, for coming and giving your time and sharing your wisdom with all our listeners. It really means a lot.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. See you. Well, that was all for today's episode of the Coffee with Warriors podcast. Thank you for listening. I hope that you will follow and share this podcast, and I look forward to you joining us for many more conversations with our warriors. Thank you so much.